everybody, I'm Connor, that's Doug, and this is the Bethel School District Presents podcast, and we have a very important show this week. This week we are talking about McKinney-Vento, and if you're not familiar with that, McKinney-Vento Education of Homeless Children and Youth Assistance Act is a federal law that ensures immediate enrollment in educational stability for homeless children and youth. McKinney-Vento provides federal funding to states for the purpose of supporting district programs that serve homeless students.
Here in Bethel, our Community Connections Department oversees this critical work, and joining us today are two amazing women who help students daily. Tony Agostino is our McKinney-Vento specialist, and Tammy Booth is our unaccompanied youth navigator. Thank you both for joining us.
Let's have each of you tell us a little bit about your work, and Tammy, we'll start with you.
Yeah, my name is Tammy Booth, and I work as an unaccompanied youth navigator in the school district. I work more with our high school students. We have 6 high schools. I work with all 6 of them. The majority of my day is spent, though, at our 3 comprehensive high schools, and those are one-on-ones with kids. There's 3 different types of one-on-ones I do. The first is we get referrals from a variety of people at the school, and so just doing that initial check-in with the student to find out if they qualify for McKinney-Vento services as an unaccompanied youth, checking out what their housing situation is, and then doing kind of a needs assessment based. After that, we kind of make sure that they have ways that they can connect with me, so that way we can work on getting those needs met. Another type of meeting that I do with students is check-ins, and so those are the SIS team helped me put together reports that are based on failing grades and attendance. So when I have space in my schedule, I meet with those kids to just kind of check in with them and see, what's going on with your grades, how come you're not being here, let's look at your student view, let's look at your Canvas and your to-dos, and making sure they get back on track. The third is those one-on-ones, and those students book with me, and those are mostly to kind of help meet their basic needs. That can look like anything from helping them with the Washington Connections EBT food stamp application, getting them connected with our 3 community healthcare school-based clinics and getting them to their appointments and the paperwork they need for that. Community healthcare also has insurance navigators, and so we can get the kids on state insurance, so that way not only are they getting their medical needs met, but they also can get mental health services through the school. And then if we have any athletes, they can get their sports physical done. We help with any of their important documents. We can get them state IDs. We can help them get their birth certificate. We can help them get Social Security cards. We also have access to Title I funds, so we're able to get them clothing, glasses if they need, help with any fines and fees that are dealing with access to school. And then we get a lot of donations for school supplies, so making sure that they have every single school supply they need to be successful at school. I also do check-in with our seniors, so making sure they're on track for graduation. If they're not on track, then checking with their counselors. I tell all of them there is a path, we just have to find it. And so a lot of work with the graduation success coordinators at the schools and the credit retrieval clerks, so that way we can get them where they need to be by June. We do some beyond work with graduation too. We help them fill out their FAFSA. FAFSA looks a little bit different for unaccompanied youth, so helping them navigate that. And then most of our Washington colleges have someone at the college that has a similar role to me. So connecting with that person and giving that student kind of a warm handoff. So that way they already have a connection at the school, because there's a long gap between when they graduate and when they go. So then they have someone connected at the school already that they know are going to help them with the supports that they need while they're there. And then for those students that aren't interested in like a 4-year university, we do have a connection with ANEW, which is a passport to a new program, and that is apprenticeships. And those are funded for students who are unaccompanied and foster youth, and it helps them kind of get a step ahead. So that way when they do start an apprenticeship, they've done this pre-apprenticeship with ANEW, and they have more certifications than your average person who's starting. I really think that a key part of my work is working with what I like to call Team Bethel. I work alongside all of our amazing high school social workers in supporting the students. And then there's several other people, like at Bethel High School. If I am like, where has this kid been? The first person I'm going to go to is campus security, because Holly and Roy know those kids like no other, and they're gonna know what's going on. And then working alongside at Spanaway Lake, Trina. If you've ever been to the Student Resource Center there, it's amazing. It's this safe space for kids to be at that's not only safe but culturally relevant to them. And so a lot of my work at Spanaway Lake is actually through Trina. She has those relationships with the kids, and then I just come in and do the navigation and the resource support. So I think it's just a team. Like all the office staff at the schools, like our registrars and our attendance clerks are the ones who are a lot of times doing the referrals for kids for this program. And then even the front office staff, if I have a kid who's coming to see me, and as much as I would like to be at every school every day, it's not doable, right, with 6 high schools. And so when I'm not there, they're, checking in with the student when they show up to the office to find me and making sure I know when I show up that week, or contacting me during the week, hey, so-and-so came to see you, so that way I can get them on my calendar. So for me, it's really not only supporting the students, but working with the staff so that way the students are supported when I'm not there.
Wow.
That is a massively complicated
Right?
and time-consuming job, I would imagine. And I'm sure you must feel like you're juggling plates sometimes. But kudos for even being able to have all that stuff on the top of your head to kind of talk about it, let alone do it every day. So, Tony, what about you as a McKinney-Vento specialist? Can you walk us through your day?
Oh, for sure. I think it's so funny because me and Tammy, we share an office, right? And so what's funny is if Tammy's out there in the face with all the kids, I'm like the little office gremlin that only knows, because it's so funny. Tammy will come back and be like, everyone's asking, who's Tony? And I'm like, it's me. Hi, don't worry about it. I'm just the girl in the office. I send emails. I don't really go to face in the schools. But I'm the person who would stay in the office, and I'm calling all these families. I'm calling referrals. A lot of my day is just, what do people need? What does my team need? How can I best help and make sure all the paperwork, because we're OSPI. We gotta abide by all those laws.
We love paperwork.
Right, we love paperwork, and that's me. I'm your girl. I'm paperwork girl. But it's super fun, and it's always because we're community connections. McKinney-Vento, it doesn't just stop there. Right. We always have donations. We have Bob events.
And for those that don't know, Bob is Bob the bus, the Bethel Outreach
Yes.
bus that you load up with supplies. I've seen you all packing him to the gills and
Right.
taking him out into the
Oh
community.
my
for
goodness.
folks.
Y'all don't even understand how hard it is to clean those buses. Lord. We have so many kids in this district now coming in, and there's just so much homelessness going on as well. And a lot of people don't even know they qualify for our program. And they're struggling, they're drowning, and then we're reaching the people who are, in the thick of it, and we don't even, sometimes we miss the people who are just above the water a little bit. And so hopefully with our team being the way it is and reaching so many more families this year, we can get back to those families who are just right above the water, just about to drown, but they're still making it. Hopefully we can, as a Community Connections and McKinney-Vento team, support the whole district that are struggling.
Yeah, and those that are, quote, making it are just above that McKinney-Vento
Yeah.
line,
Mm-hmm.
the legal definition, I guess, of
Yeah,
of the
because
folks
it's
we can serve.
if you don't have a lease, if you don't have a mortgage, if your name is not on any housing paperwork, unfortunately the law says you can get kicked out anytime, even though you're with your people and your family. Sometimes things happen, and unfortunately that's what's happening a lot, is that people don't have as much in general, which means they don't have as much to give anymore. And so that's what we're seeing a lot, is people are wanting to help and people are struggling, but it's just hard to reach that and get resources when everybody in general in the world is struggling.
Absolutely. Well, this is obviously, from listening to you both, no small task. The numbers seem to grow each and every year, and we're not talking dozens of kids experiencing homelessness. We're talking hundreds. Tammy, the last number I heard was that you had nearly 60 unaccompanied youth you were working with. What sorts of living conditions are they dealing with?
Yeah, and I think we're closer to 75 now.
Wow.
The biggest population we have is what's called doubled up, and that's where that can look like a student living on a friend's couch. It can look like a student living with a relative that isn't their legal guardian. We do have unaccompanied youth that are living in their car on their own. We have some that are in the shelters, teen shelters. They have Cafe Oasis. If you ever want a coffee and you're in Tacoma, check out Cafe Oasis, an incredible program that supports teens that are in shelter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then we have some that have been at the Gig Harbor Hope Center. And then even some when we don't have room in the shelters, which right now they are full, we have students that are literally living on the streets. So we make sure they have some, something warm to be in and a dry place to stay and transportation to school. So they have a place that they can come and be safe and eat during the day.
Awesome. Wow.
Yeah, vitally important stuff. And Tony, as you mentioned, part of your job, or a big part of your job, is helping get students and families registered so they can benefit from the McKinney-Vento Act. My latest numbers show that we have more than 400 students registered and that the team was working to check in with 600 more that were registered last year. Even though we're talking about hundreds of folks, I assume you get to know them and their situations pretty well. Can you share some examples of tough times families are finding themselves in?
Oh, for sure, for sure. And your numbers are really actually super cool.
Excellent.
That's crazy.
Our research team's doing it.
Look at y'all. So last year we ended around 900 families, or 900 students were qualified. And I think in the first 3 months we qualified 400, so around half of our case last year. But a lot of what we're finding is that doubled up category. But what's happening for a lot of folks now is evictions. But what we're also seeing is that landlords are raising rent. And when they do that, where people aren't making enough money, they're raising rent and they're getting 14-day eviction notices, 30-day eviction notices, pay or vacate, pay or vacate. And it's just a little harder because these are families that have lived in this, house for maybe 5-10 years. And then they just get that one eviction notice and now, their credit's ruined. Everything's ruined, right? So I think it's important that a lot of people understand that within our cases within this district, it's not your biases, it's not your stereotypes that we're serving, right? It's these students and their families that are going through such a hard time. And it's just housing that's so terrible lately, honestly, that we're seeing that just so many people are living in cars and tents now because they're getting evicted. They're doubling up or tripling up with other family members, and you can see maybe 5 kids to a 1-bedroom. It's really difficult, too, because you have families that are doubling up, right? And it's because of necessity and because, it's just super crowded. But then it's hard to distinguish because then you have cultural families, too, right? And they live like that because it's their culture. They have to take care of their grandparent and their ailing thing. So how can we separate those two, right? Where these families are in real need of help and they qualify, but so do these families and they don't need as much help, right? So that's kind of some of the things is we don't get to judge who needs help. If you need help and you come to us, we'll help you. It's kind of the law. It's who we are as, a community, as Bethel, right? Bethel strong. But a lot of it, as we're seeing, is raised rent, eviction notices, doubling up, and then cars. And our safe parking is full. Our new Family Promise shelter, that's full as well with the waiting list as well. So it's just, there's no more resources. There's no places to go. And it's just, how do we help these kids come to school when everything's falling apart?
Yeah, it feels a little odd. You almost want to, it's sad that we have this, every year where more and more families. But at the same time, there is some hopefulness there in that we are there, you are there to help those families. So those families are going to be there whether we know the number or not. So at least now they're able to get some help.
Yeah, and connected with those resources. And an important part of that is the work that you both are doing is helping remove barriers to students' education. We have folks working in many different ways to get rid of the things that are in the way of a student's ability to concentrate in class, whether it's their living situation, past trauma, learning difficulties. What motivated both of you to start working in this field? Tammy, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think for me, I've always had that mentality that it takes a village. And I believe that every student in our district deserves the resources they need to graduate. Different kids are dealt different cards, so it's harder for some. On a more personal level, in 2016, we actually had an unaccompanied youth lived with us. I didn't know that term at that time. It was my daughter's best friend. And I've seen what having that stability has done for her. She's 22, just got a job with the fire department. And so I know that stability is what got her to where she's at. And knowing that I can be part of that and we can be part of that is huge for me.
Absolutely. That's an amazing story. Tony, how about you?
I think it's kind of the same. What's so funny is that growing up, I was McKinney-Vento. Really? So I'm Samoan, right? So me and my family moved from the islands. And there was 3 of us living in a 2-bedroom apartment, right? There's 3 different families living together, and there was always resources that we're always sharing, right? And then growing up, it was the same thing. We're always looking for resources at the food bank with the food stamps and everything. And then you grow up that way and you think it's normal, right? You grow up that way, you're like, oh, this is just fine. And then you realize people don't need extra resources. They're fine on their own. And so I think growing up and going to college and being Pacific Islander and seeing all of my people in these lines all the time, but we don't get the information, right? We don't get the resources. We don't get the English, the one-on-one sometimes. And if I have people who look like me were part of it and understood and were able to speak the language that my parents spoke, we could have gotten out of it a lot faster. And we could have gotten a lot more support that would have been catered to us rather than just, oh, well, here's these flyers. And I hope that that's what we do when we meet our own kids in the district, is that we're not just going to sell you this cookie cutter, this is where you have to go. This is what we listen to you, and we're like, well, this is what you need. We're not just going to give you some random things just because it's what we give everybody. If you don't need hygiene supplies, we're not going to give you hygiene supplies. We're going to give you a safe parking, a person to connect with safe parking. And so a lot of it was just my past. And if people looked like me and understood where I was coming from and understood the demographic and the culture of where my people come from, it would have been a lot less traumatizing, I feel like.
I'm sure.
Because people, they don't understand, and then the stereotypes, right? And then we see that every day with McKinney-Vento. If people don't want to call in because they're embarrassed, or people don't want to talk about it because, it's personal to them. And I understand that, lovely, but we're here to help. And we can't, closed mouths don't get fed, unfortunately. And so that was the biggest thing for me, is if, I went to college and I did all of this stuff, I might as well be at a forefront and at the table to share my experiences, but also let people know that if you're from where I'm from, we can still come up here and change the conversation and be a part of the conversation and lend ourselves to help.
I love that.
I want to snap for you.
Yeah, very powerful stuff. And understandably, a lot of the things we're talking about today are very somber. These are very somber topics. But that's not to say that there aren't amazing success stories, too, and things we shouldn't be celebrating. Can either of you tell us about some success stories with students where they've started at a place and really overcome that with our help, but obviously it's their own doing don't use names, any specifics, but any stories that people can that can inspire them?
Yeah, how much time do we have?
We have 3 years.
Well, that's good. That's good to hear. I'm glad to hear we have a lot of it.
Yeah.
I have a couple kids that come to mind. I have a family that comes to mind. It's a brother that took on his younger brother. When I met with them, they were living in a one-bedroom apartment, struggling with food and things like that. So connected them with all the resources, and then worked with REACH, which REACH is a program that we use to get families housed. My position is steering the school, so connected them at the end of the year. So then, didn't know what was going to happen over the summer with them. Saw them on campus this fall, and REACH had helped them move into a 2-bedroom. And so to hear that student, when I asked him, how did things go? And he's like, I have my own bedroom. And so excited about something that seems so simple. And REACH, not only did they connect them with getting in there, they also help with furniture and other things. So he had his own bed, his own bedroom. So that was pretty cool. Another student, football player, super quiet, never really chatted much, was definitely not on track to graduate. His counselor would send him messages, wouldn't show up to come in to meet with her. And then we went to a conference, and in that conference, they talked about, if you feed them, they will come. And so we worked with Chick-fil-A and got Chick-fil-A to come out. So that way, it was right before spring break. I could meet with each kid for 5 minutes, make sure that they were good to go for spring break. And they all came because they're Chick-fil-A, right? And so this student came and loves Polynesian sauce, used every single packet of Polynesian sauce that I had, and talked to me for 45 minutes. And during that time and that 45-minute chat, he finally, I think, built enough trust to where I could be like, we can find you a path to graduate. And he graduated in June. And I got to see him walk across the stage. And it was
awesome.
The coolest thing. Yeah, so... another one is Tony and I set up, actually Tony did all the legwork. I invited the kids. She did all the work. We got all of our unaccompanied youth that were juniors and seniors to come to UW-T on a field trip. And we're walking around, and I have a student there. She had lots of stuff going on. So this was actually her second year as a senior. She chose to stay on, knew that that's how she could graduate. So she's now 2 months away from graduating. And we're walking around, and she's like, Mrs. Booth, I can see it. I could go here. It was her first ever trip on a college campus, which we've taken our own kids to all sorts of college campuses. So it was super cool to see her reaction and her finally see what we could see in her, that yes, you can do this. We can get you the resource and the access. It was just getting her on that campus. So that was pretty cool. And then graduation, it's like the highlight. It's the best day, like best day. Being able to see all these kids who have so many aces and so many cards against them to not graduate. Watching them walk across that stage is like the coolest thing. We have a church that comes in and helps us make graduation lays. So afterwards, I'm running around, handing their lays, seeing them, and they're just smiling. And it's the highlight, I think, is that the graduation day.
Yeah, I would imagine it's things like that kind of keep you coming back every day.
Yeah, and it's kind of like a secret, right? Because they don't even know what these kids have gone through. Like, we've known, and like, you guys don't even know, like, these are superstars that have made it, and they're graduating. You don't even know their story.
Yeah.
And it's just like a little Easter egg hunt for us, I feel like.
Yeah,
we're like, oh
absolutely.
my gosh, look, this is our student. This is McKinney-Vento. Yeah.
Really, really inspiring stuff. I love it. This is, of course, the giving season, and with folks thinking more about giving back to others in their community, if listeners want to help with your work, what are some ways you could encourage them to do that?
It would be like cool if like there was more community support. So what I'm talking about is the multicultural language education night that happens at Spanaway Lake in like May.
Right.
That's so cool. I feel like if you want to support community connections in McKinney-Vento, I feel just showing up to more of these events, these community events, because that's where we're there. And we talk about our program. And I feel like if people want to support, they should, maybe just come out to these events and see what's up with us and talk to us a little bit more. And if you want to donate anything, we can, and we don't need it, we'll share out the opportunities, right? We are more than happy to divert the resources to where they need to go.
That's awesome. I love that you brought up the multicultural night because especially with those language barriers that were part of your own upbringing, and that's just another piece of the things that kind of get in the way of students' education. We have an amazing multilingual program here as well as the work you all are doing, and it's really amazing to see all the different pieces that go into place to help a student to succeed. Tammy, any donation advice from you?
Yeah, absolutely. So we collect $25 gift cards for all of our unaccompanied youth. And so you can reach out to me. You can drop them off at the Family Center if you see any McKinney-Vento or any of the social workers at the high school. $25 gift cards for anywhere. Some of the kids need food. Some of them to go out to a restaurant. You know, the girls love makeup, so any $25 gift card.
Love that. Thank you both so much for joining us today. This is an important conversation, and the work that you're doing, honestly, we've worked alongside you for a long time now, and I didn't realize the scope of your day-to-day lives here at Bethel. The work you're doing is just invaluable to our students, so thank you both very much. McKinney-Vento Specialist Tony Agostino and Unaccompanied Youth Navigator Tammy Booth, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yes, Tammy and Tony, we absolutely appreciate the work you're doing in the district, and we appreciate you being guests on the show. We will be back next week with another episode.